Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be looking at the role of an assistant psychologist. So we're going to be looking into what an assistant psychologist actually does, and then I'm going to speak through a typical day in my life, and then we're also going to cover some other bits including salary and why assistant psychologist work is a great step in becoming a clinical psychologist. So with all that being said, let's get into it. If you're new around here, my name's Sharon and I'm an assistant psychologist that works in a split post, meaning that half my week is spent in a stroke psychology service and the other part of my week is spent in a dementia and frailty service. I've been in this role for about a year and a half now, and I'm soon going to start training as a clinical psychologist. So generally, an assistant psychologist, also known as an AP, is a form of clinical support for a clinical psychologist. Now, the clinical psychologist, who is completely qualified, would hold the responsibility of any care or support that the assistant psychologist provides. So while an AP will have their own caseload of clients or patients, the clinical psychologist will ultimately hold responsibility over these people. So as an assistant psychologist, you may be asked to complete assessments. So this might be a clinical interview or neuropsychological assessments. You'll also be doing a lot of MDT working, and so being that voice, I guess, of psychology within the MDT room. So in these meetings you may act as a triage, so that you can either accept or defer referrals during the meeting. You will also be the voice that will aid psychological thinking around an individual's care. As an assistant, you may have to observe clients and complete assessments that way. At the beginning of my role, I spent a lot of time doing literature reviews for my supervisors. So my supervisors, and most of the time when you are an AP, they will be clinical psychologists. So my supervisors would ask me to do literature reviews, look for new kinds of questionnaires that we can use with our clients, and do general research for the service. And I think that's quite a big part of an AP role, especially at the beginning. As I progressed as an AP, I've now been allowed to do more interventions. And when we say intervention, we mean therapy. Now this will greatly depend on your role, so definitely read the job description of the post that you're applying to. But in my role, I do quite a lot of intervention work. I do one-to-one, and I've also started doing some group therapy as well. Alongside working with the clients and their families, we also do a lot of work with staff. So that might be staff on the inpatient ward, or even staff within residential care homes and things like that. So when we think about working with families and carers, we can do either support sessions or even training, so psychoeducation around the individual and their needs. And APs may also be asked to complete audits or pieces of research that will aid the improvement of the services. So as an AP, you do so many different things, which is why I love working as an AP so much, especially the fact that you get to be involved with service improvement through doing research and audit. You're also really heavily involved with people's care, which is so rewarding and so intriguing, and I think that's what brings most people to the psychology career. But then also thinking about moving forward in what I want to do in life, which is to become a clinical psychologist. It's so nice to be surrounded by actual clinical psychologists and be mentored by them and observe them and how they do things so that I can learn. And there has never been a day where I haven't learned something as an AP, and I've been in the same role for a year and a half. So that just shows you how much you're learning and how, I guess, fast-paced it is, because while we're not in a crisis service, the people that we see, they're all very different, and so you are having to learn new things to support each client pretty much every week, which I find so interesting. For me, a typical day in my life would be to spend maybe the first hour planning my day, doing emails. Then I would typically have my first session at about 10 o'clock, which is a one-to-one intervention. I tend to have 3 sessions a day with clients. Now this can depend on how long the session is. So assessment sessions where I am first meeting the client, or if I'm doing a neuropsychological assessment, these tend to be longer, so up to an hour and a half. But we do change this depending on the client. And after all of my clinical work, I then have to do clinical admin. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know that clinical admin is my nemesis. It's all about writing up your notes from each session. You also have to write letters to the client, referrals to other services. So it's all the paperwork, which I just don't enjoy at the moment. I don't think many people enjoy it. So that is a big part of my day as well. I also spend about an hour a week doing CPD, so continuing professional development, which is just for my own learning that will help me in my working in the services. So for example, I may watch a webinar on stroke psychology or on dementia, thinking about what will aid me in my own current work and taking some time to reflect on that CPD. So I also do a lot of random phone calls, I guess, so triaging clients, making sure that we're the right service for them, figuring out whether they need urgent support or whether they can maybe wait for a little bit. I also do check-in phone calls as well for anyone that's waiting on our waiting list. In both my roles I do a lot of neuropsychological assessments, so while working in the dementia service I do dementia assessments, and in the stroke service I will do normally return to work assessments. So if someone's had a stroke and they want to return to work but they're not too sure how their cognition is going to impact, or if there are noticeable cognitive changes, then we will come in and do a full assessment so that we know where their strengths are and where they may need some more support. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we've also started doing online mindfulness sessions for the staff working on our ward because they're very stressed and they definitely need some time to breathe and regain their contact with the present moment. So we've been doing that to support staff. I also created various documents at the beginning of the pandemic for our service users and our staff, and these booklets were centered around the services in the local area and how they may support them during a lockdown. We also had some brief mindfulness techniques in there, some grounding exercises, and overall it was really well received. So as an AP, you're doing loads of these random things. It's really cool to see how psychology can be used on so many different levels and how many people you can actually reach. And working with family members, I do a lot of psychoeducation, so with people who have experienced a stroke, it can be quite helpful for their family members to understand how the stroke has affected their behaviour and their personality, because that can be quite tricky to get to terms with. So yeah, those are the different activities that I do daily. I also should mention that I have weekly supervision with my supervisor, who is a clinical psychologist. So in this meeting we will discuss my caseload, come up with some plans or share my plans, but also develop plans with my supervisor if I am struggling that week. We also speak about the CPD that I've done. If I have any concerns, then I can raise them there, and it's also space for me to reflect on work, because work can be tough and also the world can be tough. And so I can also bring in the stuff from the outside world and speak about that in supervision and reflect on how that may be impacting my work, which it's just such a helpful space. Which leads me on to why I think an AP post, and many others think it's the best step forward in getting onto clinical training. Now, I want to put this disclaimer out there: an AP post is not the only way for you to get onto the doctorate. Both of my supervisors, I mention this in literally every video, but I think it's so important to highlight that both my supervisors had never worked as an AP prior to getting on training, which is incredible because AP roles are really idolised in the way that people think you have to work as an AP in order to get onto training, but you don't. But I do think it is a really good way to get yourself onto training, because firstly, you are working alongside a clinical psychologist who can be your mentor. They can help you get onto training by highlighting the areas where you need some more improvement, but they've also been on training themselves, so they can notice maybe if you are ready and then encourage you a bit more to apply. They may also help with your applications and proofread it. Working in as an AP brings you closer to the clinical psychology career because you're within that setting. You're also going to be working alongside trainees who are on training at the moment, so it's a really good place to find these extra resources in order to get onto training. You're really well connected. But also another thing with working as an AP is that the work that you do is so similar to the work that you'll be doing on training. And if you look through the trainee clinical psychologist person specification, a lot of the person specification points can be completed if you work as an AP. When you work as an AP, you'll typically be in an NHS setting, which is great because part of the doctorate application process will look at your understanding of working within the NHS. And there's no better way to learn this than working in an NHS setting, especially as an AP, because you'll be able to sit in on the business meetings, you'll hear conversations about funding and commissioning, which you don't really learn about like at university, and I've never really learnt about it in other roles, so I think it's really important to work within the NHS. And also as an AP, you're doing so many different bits that you're really having to learn to manage your time, and that's a big part of being on training, I've heard. period. So I think it prepares you really well in that way. So now that I've told you about what an AP is and what we do, where can you find the role, and also how much do you get paid? Because I think it's important to make this very explicit, because as a psychology graduate you will be targeted by companies, schools even, that will advertise as a perfect psychology grad job and even name those roles as AP roles, but they're really not, and sometimes you'll be getting paid a lot less than what is typically advised for an AP, because working as an AP is hard. It's emotionally draining, it's hard work, it's full on at times. So normally an AP working in the NHS will get paid a band 4. There are band 5 positions, but those tend to be for assistant psychologists who are more experienced. When looking at private AP roles, make sure that they're not exploiting you or other people. Keep in mind the typical salary for an AP. Refer back to this video, look on the BPS website to make sure that it is actually an AP role. Now, I'm not going to cover how you can get an AP role because I've made so many different videos on this. I'll leave them linked down below so that you can all check it out. I'll be starting my DClinPsy series soon, so hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when I upload that. If you like this video, please give it a like and leave a comment down below, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. So until next time guys, I will see you later. Bye.